Masterclass is the epitome of beautiful looking talking head videos. Today let's break down why they look so good. And if you're just curious or want to make videos of your own, we'll be talking about how Masterclass has been able to create these videos and build such a successful business around their content. Hey friends, Kevin here. So Masterclass is just so well put together, and in addition to the obvious selling point of signing all these famous teachers, their beautiful video quality really shows and has no doubt helped them to become such a huge profitable business selling content. And as a consumer, you just see this stuff and you feel so drawn to how impressive it looks, and you naturally want to see more. Now, in Hollywood, it's common practice to hire a whole team of professionals to manage your lighting, your background, your audio, your camera, your focus, and all this other stuff. But there's actually a lot that you can do too on your own if you know a few things. So today we're gonna break down a few key aspects of how Masterclass videos look so good and how you can achieve some of them yourself at home to get that more premium video look that many of you are looking for. First and foremost, lighting. If you look at all of these videos, Masterclass does such an incredible job with their lighting. Now, we can do an entire series on lighting alone. You can spend years and years of your life studying this stuff. But I just want to point out two key aspects here. First, notice that their faces don't have any really harsh shadows. For instance, if you look here, there aren't really any big shadows on his face. This is because their faces are being lit by a large diffuse light source on this side over here. Having a large source means that every single wrinkle or nook and cranny in your face can be lit from a multiple different angles because of that large light source. So because of that, you drastically reduce the number of wrinkles and imperfections and harsh shadows you're going to get on your face. So find yourself a softbox or find some other way to diffuse your lighting across a larger surface area. You can bounce light off of something like a wall or shine it through something like a shower curtain so that you can find a way to make that light a lot less harsh and spread it out. And secondly, an often overlooked and especially important light to getting this look is the rim light. So as you can see here, a rim light sheds some light across the outline of your body. You can kind of see here on his shoulders, on the top of his hair, he's got almost this halo effect where if he didn't have it, he would blend in very much with the background. And to give you an idea of what it would look like without a rim light, I'm gonna take this little eyedropper tool and just paint over with the same color of his hair and his jacket. And you'll start to see that as soon as I take away this little shimmer of light on the top of his head and on the top of his shoulders, the image immediately goes flat. He sort of melts into the background and there's no separation and there's not much excitement going on. He just looks like someone's sitting in the dark just talking to you, and there's not really that sense of polish. And the reason we especially want it shining from the top is because this angle also makes it look like you're on stage. Gives you that spotlight performer feeling that makes us just gravitate towards listening to what you have to say. And now another reason these shots look so good is something called the rule of thirds. This is how they frame and compose their shots. And the rule of thirds is, you might have heard it, it's a basic photography term, also used in cinematography, which pretty much says that if you take your image and divide it into thirds, both vertically and horizontally, the important things tend to fall along these lines. And the reason for this is that when we look at an image, our eyes don't directly just go to the center. We sort of scan around along these lines to quickly get a sense of what the image is showing us. So when you're designing your shot, it's really helpful to put the important points of interest along these lines or at the intersection points if possible. So here we have a strong centered composition, so we can kind of ignore these sidelines. Let's get rid of those too. And you can see that whoever composed this shot put the subject's eyes right along that line. because the eye is the most important piece of your image, then followed by your face as a whole, then followed by you as the whole subject, then the entire frame as a whole. So remember, the most important thing is your eyes. And that's why they've got it here, which makes for a really nice looking image. It's perfectly situated so that her head isn't in the middle of the screen like a lot of people do on webcam and have this whole bunch of white space up top. She's filling up the entire frame, top to bottom, with still a little bit of headroom at the top so she's not squished into the frame. So moving on, another interesting thing you'll notice if you look at a lot of these masterclass videos is they all tend to employ a darker background in order for the subject to stand out. This, of course, is a stylistic thing, and you can, of course, make a bright background work, especially if it's more fitting for your own brand. But it's really interesting to notice that Masterclass made this intentional choice to design their backgrounds to be a little bit darker. And I believe they've done that in order to make the most of that top light that they have in their shot, so that you have something that you can contrast against once you create that beautiful halo, that rim around your subject. And in addition, by doing this, it also makes you feel like your image is a lot more intentionally crafted. It communicates to the viewer that, hey, a lot of time and thought and attention to detail went into this, so there's a lot of value here in this content. And then next, sort of related to that, is all of these spaces are very, very well designed. You'll notice that Masterclass does an incredible job of intentionally designing the spaces they film in. You'll notice as you watch through their videos, you very rarely, if ever, see plain white walls. Because when you see something that looks very crafted, you realize that the rest of the entire piece of content is probably just as crafted, if not more. And therefore your perceived value of this piece of content goes up. I like to remind people of this, that even the best camera that you can buy can't save you if your space looks really bad to begin with. So put just as much effort and thought into designing your space as you do in framing your shot and picking out what you're gonna wear and scripting out what you're going to say, because that matters so much more than we often give credit for. Especially if you're filming at home and want a more professional look to your videos, you don't want to make it look so obvious that you're just chilling in a bedroom. Every single one of these videos has a very thought out space with a cohesive design, and the furniture and the decor they chose and the colors of everything, it's all very well put together. And in particular, they actually make a very good use of this principle in interior design called harmony, which basically says that everything you pick in that scene should go together, should make sense in the same place. So for instance, I like to kind of use the example that you wouldn't find a brightly lit arcade machine right next to maybe your grandma's farm quilt on the wall. You know, it just doesn't fit. And so all this stuff that you'll see is an added extension of the subject. And so you can see here that this space is so well put together. And the decision process should really flow from who's on screen, who that subject is, and what the subject matter is talking about in this video. So for you, think about what your character is, what you're trying to communicate, and what your message is, and build outwards from that to create your environment. So in this case, he's teaching us how to play ukulele, or ukulele. I'm so cultured. And so he's kind of got this music vibe going, right? It's trying to immerse you in this content around music. So the designers probably thought of that and went, okay, what goes with that music? What can immerse you into that kind of content? And that's mood lighting, for instance. A lot of these other types of lights to get you in this soft, more in your feelings type of hangout space. Obviously, you've got a bunch of musical instruments hanging out, and you've got like a lounge space to make you feel comfortable. You've got all these nice little paintings. Right, you've got the brick wall behind. So this feels like a lounge hangout spot, kind of a recording studio, right? So this would have a much different effect if they had designed it to be a cubicle. And so in this case here, teaching acting, we've got something that makes sense. We've got a backdrop, kind of this drama sense in a theater. We've got these light stands holding up this backdrop. We've got exposed brick or kind of these wooden rafters, and it feels very much like a backstage vibe going on. You've got these apple crates, right? So it really, again, puts you into this state of mind that I'm gonna be immersed in acting, right? And so really be thinking through this process intentionally of how you can create your space to look the part in the same way, with as much detail as you'd pick out what you were gonna wear or what you're gonna say. Think about the rest of your space. You've got a third of your screen is you, but 2/3 of your screen is your space. So figure out what that's gonna say to your audience. And then we've got background blur. So one thing that they do especially well, although it could be argued that this one could be done a little bit better, is basically creating this awesome, nice, blurry background look. So when you look at stuff, your eye naturally focuses on whatever you're looking at. So if it's a person's face, their face is gonna be super crisp and sharp, and everything else around them, if they're not at the same exact distance, are gonna be blurred out. And so this is especially true for things that are farther away. Notice how blurry that background is. If I undo so you can see it, see how blurry that is compared to his eyeglasses? It's blurry to the point where you don't even know what that is, but it just tells your eye, hey, you're looking over here, right? Because in the real world, you can choose what to look at, and whatever you choose to look at will come into focus. But on screen, what you're doing is you're choosing that focus for your audience and telling them, hey, look over here, like my face is over here, pay attention. And by doing that, your audience doesn't have to think too much on their own about what they should be looking at, what visual information they should be processing. So Masterclass does such a great job at this. I would just say that maybe this one just feels a little bit too blurry, because the background is great, but you start to see that his hair starts getting a little bit blurry too, and his hands are a little bit blurry. This could be a little bit of motion blur here, but also his buttons. Not to nitpick, but overall, Masterclass does such a great job when it comes to background blur. And the way to do this is try to get your subject farther away from that background as possible. So this is like depth-wise, looking into the shot, try to pull them away as much as possible. So that way you can get that more distance between the subject and the background. And there's also other ways to do it, not to go into it now, but I have another video you can check out if you're curious. I'll link it up there. And then we've got motion. One thing that Masterclass does really well is making use of this tiny, subtle bit of motion in their shots. So you can do this by moving the camera left and right on a track, getting a curved track even to keep your subject at the same place in the frame. But you can also do this with editing. You don't need all this fancy gear that can often be expensive. I used to use a slider for my YouTube videos, but honestly, it just got in the way because it's just hard to be productive when there's so many things you have to set up for every single shot. So instead, you can get a similar looking shot by zooming in ever so slightly in your editing program. Technically, this is not zooming in, but like scaling up the size of that shot. But really it's the same thing. You're punching in just ever so slightly and ever so slowly to get a subtle sense that you're coming in or coming out of that shot. And you can use this to add just that more refined feeling to any shot, especially one that feels like it's going on for too long. So give that one a shot. It's a really powerful tool and super easy to use. So anyways, I know that is a lot to cover in one video, and every single one of these things we covered, we can just really go down the rabbit hole, and it's this endless amount of stuff we can dive into. But if you're interested in learning more, I have an in-depth crash course that I put together specifically around how we can design really good looking videos like this one and design your space and your setup to get a look you're proud of. And it's a bit too long for YouTube, but you can watch it for free on my website. I'll put the link down in the description down below. And if you want to learn from me personally, directly, I'm hosting the very first live online cohort of the Dream Studio course. So this Dream Studio course is this curriculum I put together of how to set up your studio from scratch, going through everything from camera, lens, lighting, background, audio, all this stuff. And we're gonna go through it together over the course of 5 weeks as a group, online, virtually over Zoom. So every single week, I'm gonna be guiding you through some of the material. We're gonna be able to give you feedback too as you implement it. So every single week, I'm gonna record a special set of video notes for you as you send in your test shots. So then I'm gonna be able to say, hey, move this thing over here, push this thing over here, turn this setting up, and that kind of thing. So every week you're gonna iterate through getting your studio looking better and better and better. The goal is by the end of the 5 weeks, regardless of where you are right now, you're gonna have a studio setup that you know how to use, that looks amazing, so you can just start putting videos out there. So you don't have to wait any longer to try to figure it out on your own. Anyways, I could talk about this all day. More information is down below if you're curious. I hope to see you in class if you're interested. If not, no worries, I'll see you in the next video. First and foremost, okay, we can do this.